It's Em
and Tare
on air. Hey guys, welcome back to our third episode of Em and Care on Air. Today our special guest is Laura Baxter.
Thanks for having me. This is super fun to see you in this role. So I am a college advisor, which I was never officially trained for. I went to Dickinson College as my undergrad and majored in psychology and education. So maybe there's some connections there to college advising. And then I did my master's at Johns Hopkins, but in organizational development, which was more like human resource management work.
Yeah.
So those are my two backgrounds that sort of semi-relate to what I'm doing here.
And so how did you kind of get into the college advising process? Kind of when did you start?
Yeah.
What led you to this point?
When I was at Dickinson as an undergrad, I was a tour guide, which maybe you'll be when you go to college. And as a tour guide, I also worked in the admissions office. It was a paid position in college. So I gave tours. I sat on panels, like student panels, like when you go to your like admitted students days or junior open houses to talk to students. And I just got involved in admissions kind of by happenstance. Like I just liked the job. And then I took a job in admissions as a paid position when I graduated. And that was kind of like the hook. And so I started working with students and doing what we do here. So having colleges come to visit high schools, reading applications, traveling for the school. And so I got into admissions work through my undergrad experience. And then I left that and worked at a nonprofit for a long, long time before I came on this side. We call it this side of the desk. So admissions is one side of the desk and counseling is the other. So I kind of flipped sides of the desk eventually.
And so far, what's kind of been your favorite part about being a college counselor? Like, what are the parts that you like about it?
Well, this part, right? Like making, not necessarily a podcast, but making connections with my students is probably my favorite part of my job. And so, I mean, obviously I work with colleges, so I have to make like just professional relationships happen on the college side. And I love traveling to schools and I like making connections with them. I really like working with students' families and getting to know their parents or guardians and working with them through the process. But it's really like the glue is the student part. And for me, building that relationship with students over time. So I like the fact that at our school, I can start with you in 9th grade and work with you all the way through the process. So some schools, you don't have that relationship. If it's a bigger school and it's, some counselors have 400 students in their docket of students that they're like doing advising with. And to have 50, or 100 if you think of juniors and seniors together, that's manageable. And that's why I wanted to work at a school this size, to have like the student relationship factor as like the core of what I do.
What would you say is your favorite part of the process? Like specifically senior year, like what is your favorite moment in the entire process?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick one. I should probably say like the day everybody gets accepted to college is my favorite. But honestly, for me, it's the 3rd or the 4th day of our workshop in the summer when the whole class is together. You haven't officially started school, but you're all working like worker bees, right? Like if you think about being in the library, we have the colleges come in and we have student interns who graduated and Christy and I are with you. There's something about like the 3rd day synergy that's like, it's like I almost stand back and see it where I'm like, it's all going to happen, right? So you're working and some people are frustrated at that point, or some people are stuck with a brainstorm or writing block. Some people are like, checking off the list. But there's something for me about that week that makes it, I don't know, it all kind of comes together. And the day that it's not even like the day of our pictures, like when we do like the pic, because that takes forever and sometimes it's raining. But there's something about that day in the workshop and then something about the region of time, because it's so different for everybody, when you really start to see like it works, right? Like you found your home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a different day for almost everybody.
Yeah. But
But that region of time, like that window of time is like super cool to see.
I know, at least for me, like just kind of talking about the college process overall, I don't know how I could have prepared better, but I don't know. I feel like it's a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. Like I don't think that I would accept any form of money to go back and do that whole process again, if that makes sense.
Definitely not.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of kind of some advice to try and give for upcoming seniors or upcoming underclassmen.
Take the workshop.
Yeah.
Is like the biggest thing that I think everybody that we've talked to.
Yeah.
100%. So all of our friends, even Jeremy and Christian, also said take the workshop. Because mostly if you're doing, obviously Jeremy was doing theater and Christian was doing sports and like I was doing sports. And so having that week before school starts to actually get mostly everything done was just
well, to be together.
helpful.
I mean, I think part of the advice, I think, and I agree, like nobody wants to go back and reapply to college. I get that, even though that's my job.
Yeah.
But I respect that, and I think that's true. But I think that for me, the most important thing a student should think about is like it's self-reflection.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is nothing more about this process than getting to know who you are and who you've been and where you want to go. And I don't mean where you want to go from like the sticker like behind my head on my board or on your car. I mean like where do you want to go in life, right? So if nothing comes out of this process, you've asked yourself 100 questions about who you are, what's important to you, and where you want to go, right? So if that advice, whether it's from you or from me, sticks and people listen to that, like it will be hard. It's not an easy it shouldn't be an easy process, right? It should be stressful. It should be overwhelming. It should be a roller coaster because you're doing something that you've never done before. You'll never do again. And the outcome means that you're going to meet a whole new world of people and figure out what you're going to do in your life, right? So it has it's a lot at stake, right? But I think that, I mean, both of you handled your process in different ways, came about it in different ways, looked at different kinds of schools, but your outcome is still the same where you're happy, right? And you found a place where you're going to grow and evolve and change. And all of that takes hard work and it's not fun all the time, right? Yeah. So I don't ever want people to think it's easy.
Yeah.
Right? But you did it gracefully.
I know, at least for me, like, obviously the whole writing the supplemental essays and my kind of personal essay was really stressful.
There's 22 pages of supplementals.
It took a lot to kind of get my ideas in kind of one place, but it was kind of fun to brainstorm all these different things. And like, obviously some of the supplemental questions that were asked by colleges, like some of them are a little bit more fun than other ones. And so I think those fun questions were really good because it just helps you think about kind of what you were saying, your identity in a different way, and kind of how you want to present yourself to this admissions committee and like how you want to write about yourself, what story you want to tell or craft in your application. And I think that's really valuable, especially going into your next step of life, which is college. You kind of have that background of like, okay, I think I have a better understanding of who I am and I kind of know what strengths I can bring to this college and stuff. So
I also think specifically, because did you apply to Maryland?
I did not.
Right. So for the 30 of us that applied to Maryland, I think it was really funny talking to all the people that they had one specific question was, what did you do like last Friday?
Yes.
Nobody put what they did last Friday because it was quite literally like, well, I wrote my college essay or like something like that. But a lot of people's responses were just super important moments in their life about, well, recently. Yeah. Obviously not like when they were 5 years old or anything. But like mine was something about, my grandma was able to make it to my senior game. And that was super important to me because like all I wanted was for her to be able to like actually get there. And like other people talked about, well, we were able to go to like Maine or something like that. But I just think that was so interesting that like some of the questions really got you thinking. Yeah. And I fear most of them know that's not what you did that Friday night. Right. But,
they were trying to figure out what that story, but it goes back to story, right? Yeah. You mentioned that before, but your whole process was really about shaping and sharing your story. Yeah. And those questions, supplemental questions or short answers for Maryland, are all intended to get a short snippet of something about you to figure out if that's like, again, like the puzzle piece. Like, are you the puzzle piece that fits into that school at that time, right? Yeah. And none of your answers are ever wrong, but depending on what that school wants, it may fit in that school's puzzle, but not this school's puzzle, right? And that's what's so interesting because it's introspective and also being, read and reviewed and evaluated. Yeah. But that can't be the outcome. The outcome has to be like, oh, I know much more about who I am. Yeah. Right? Which you do, and you did great.
And this is kind of like more of a fun question. Do you guys have like a favorite supplemental question that you've seen so far in college? You don't have to mention the college by name, but just like kind of a favorite supplemental that you had to answer in your process.
You're going to know what school this is as soon as I say it. But I love the question that's the Ben & Jerry's flavor.
Oh, yeah.
From UVM. Yeah. Because it's so, like, culturally connected to the school, right? Yeah. And also you can hear and think about, like, so many different things and perspectives of students. And I love that they actually end up making some of the flavors of some of the kids. Yeah, like, if they find, like, one flavor that, like, resonates with the admissions staff, they'll like make a batch of that ice cream, which I think is so cool.
That's neat.
But it's like that matches the school, right? Sometimes you get a question that you're like, St. Mary's has a good one too, if you're still thinking of yours. And theirs is about like their riverfront, like their waterfront. If you have the afternoon to just be at the waterfront, what would we find you doing? And they hear everything under the sun, right? From like hanging out with my friends to napping to paddling to sailing. And they know that if you don't want to be sitting at that riverfront, that's probably not the school for you, right? Because their social life is that riverfront.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a city. It's not shopping. It's not eating because you're like way at the end of this little road, right? On a peninsula. And so it's such a good question to ask. So I feel like the school questions are so connected to the philosophy or the purpose of the school, right? So which one was yours?
I think I would say, I mean, it was kind of random in the list of questions that they asked, but I'm pretty sure it was Maryland. They asked, like, what's one scientific fact or some type of fact that you thought was super interesting and resonated with you. I think my answer, it was something about how in schools for mostly now with social media and how everybody gets super stressed out over, you know, this, that, and third. And it was like, if you have a beanbag in school, it's really neat actually. It's like 95% of the kids who like sit on that beanbag will just feel a whole lot like calmer.
Oh yeah.
Which is really neat. And it's also
so
like
cool.
it's like a like occupational therapy fact too. That's why a lot of people have like a beanbag or something that's like comfy.
I've never heard that, but I love that fact.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yes.
Yeah.
I need a beanbag chair in here.
Yeah. I mean, the couches are pretty comfortable.
Couch,
too.
couch is good too. Couch is good too.
Yeah.
I think I have two. One of them was asked by Wake Forest University, and that was the quote from Dr. Maya Angelou, I believe, because she was an alumni there. And I think one of her quotes was something like, hard work won't work unless you do, or it was something with hard work. And so that was a really good segue for me because I got to talk about my background in gymnastics because I was homeschooled. I did gymnastics for, I don't know how long, but since I was really young, and then I was homeschooled in 4th and 5th grade doing like a really intense kind of homeschool gymnastics program where I was at the gym basically every day for like 4 to 6 hours, balancing schoolwork there and stuff. And so it kind of from gymnastics, I got a lot of my discipline that I have today. And so it was kind of nice just to be able to like talk about that and kind of use that quote to connect it. And then I forgot what school, I think a couple schools do this. It's kind of a more basic question, but it's like something about what's your favorite thing to do or favorite pastime.
Oh, yeah.
Or talk about one of your favorites. And so I talked about my oatmeal bowls that I would build after the gym. Yes. And how I could make it
What
like
you put in it based on what you were thinking that day.
like sweet or savory.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, all the different combinations kind of remind me of my future and all the different possibilities I have. So I don't know, like a couple of those were just fun to try and like curate these kind of creative, unique answers to showcase more of yourself. But those were two of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love that question.
Yeah.
That's good.
And it's like,
It reminds me when you did the I am, I think you both did this at least in the workshop, and you just have like the statement of I am, and you can write as many like affiliates with who you are, right? And it's not meant to be, you're like
I fear I only put like 3 things.
Yeah, but that's okay, right? But however you, like that goes back to identity and how that can be so many different things. And like you were just saying, Emma, about your grandma being at your final volleyball game. I'm assuming that's what that was, right?
Yeah.
But like that, like, so like that, like I am a like family oriented person, or I am connected to my, whatever those things are that then become a part of your story. Like that's what the schools want to know, because everybody in high school is kind of doing the same activities, right? You're in student government, or you're in model congress, or you're playing a sport. Like there's only so many things that you can do in a high school setting, and everybody's taking somewhat of the same kinds of classes and getting grades.
Yeah.
But it's all the other periphery, right?
Yeah.
That makes that story complete and what they're trying to figure out. And that's hard to answer some of those.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to think about them longer. But I do think they're kind of like the meat of your application, right?
And kind of speaking about like the main part of your application, let's talk a little bit about the Common App essay. That 650 word essay, personal statement, or whatever you want to call it.
It's over, girls. It's over. You did it.
That was just such a process.
And so real quick, I don't know if they released the prompts for the 2026 year.
They did.
Oh, they don't usually change them, do
This
they?
group has not changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the same kind of questions.
Yeah, it's 7 options. One of them being whatever you want it to be, which makes it kind of easy. Yeah.
So do you have any advice for the Common App essay and kind of how to craft a story to present to the admissions committee while staying under the word limit, and kind of like,
Yeah.
what is your advice for a junior thinking about, taking that big first step and starting to draft their comment?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that when you're randomly doing the things that you love, so if you're like, for me, if I was out on a hike or on a run or hanging out with my friends, like what are the things you start to think about that define who you are, right? So don't write right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think any time in the summer, so the juniors who are going to be doing this workshop in August, I would say that just random times in the summer when you're doing the things that you love, what are you thinking about that you would want them to know about you, like any college to know about you? And when you start to list that, so like if you take your phone and open up a note and start that random list, right? It really is random at first. Like what I want to talk about, my love of being outside. When I want to talk about, something important that I feel like I've learned about myself. What I want them to know about a story that happened 2 years ago, but that's still kind of, playing out. I don't know. I don't know what those answers are yet, but as I start a note and start to write down a list, it almost starts to formulate itself, right? And if you looking at my computer right now, like I have stickers on my computer. You probably have them on your water bottle or on your computer. Yeah. I always say to students, start there, right? If you aren't sure what you want to tell a college about who you are, start with the stickers that you pick that identify most with you, right? So mine are like, you can see, I've got there's a tree. This is Maine. So this is like water and mountains of Maine. Here we are over here with mountains again. This is actually my school, so that doesn't work if you're going to college. And then being outside, right?
Yeah.
So, and maybe this connection again to this is home, right? So the Maryland kind of symbol. So I even just say start with the simple things of maybe you don't think they're a big deal, but they probably define exactly who you are. And all these stickers, if we looked at all 50 of the rising seniors water bottle or computer stickers, they all tell a different shade of a story, right? And so I would start there and not worry so much about how do I write 500 to 650 words. And you notice I said 500 to 650 because I don't love everybody to hit 650.
Right.
You can tell your story. And then sometimes I say start by just recording yourself talking to yourself. What would you want someone to know about you if they were just starting to get to know you? And usually that it kind of bubbles up from that, right? When you percolate for a little bit on it, then it comes up and then you start to write. And it doesn't feel so daunting, right? But I don't know, you guys just did it. So what would you say?
I mean, I kind of did that approach that you were talking about. I know the summer before, I was on vacation with my family and my neighbors, and I was just kind of starting to draft or just starting to formulate ideas. I've had a list on my phone, I think probably since 9th grade, of just ideas that I want to talk to. Exactly. Actually, I can pull it up and see what I wrote. But I just kept a little note thing, and then just whenever I feel like inspiration just kind of hits you sometimes. Sometimes I'm not able to just sit down and write. Maybe I'll be asleep and I'm just trying to fall asleep, but I can't. And I'm like, oh, this will make a really good college essay or something like that. Yeah. I'll just wake up and I'll just jot it down, look at it in the morning. Good. So for me, it was just having that evolution from 9th grade and just jotting down any little idea that I would think of to write.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So good.
I mean, I know I chose the open one. Just write whatever you want. And I did not write a notes app. I just kind of let it. I sat there until we got to the workshop. Except I always knew. You
knew what you were going to write about forever.
I always knew what I was going to write about. Because, obviously, being a biracial child that's adopted into a white family. That's a pretty strong identity and thing to talk about. Yeah. Because I had to learn so much. Obviously, I was learning with my parents. My mom had to learn how to do curly hair now. And, we had to learn how to navigate going to the doctors and them having to ask us, is that really your child? And, stuff like that. So I always knew that I wanted to write something about that because that's obviously shaped who I am so greatly that I just,
Well, and that's why everyone's is so different. Some people have something that's like the core of who they are.
Yeah.
And you've always known that somehow that was going to be your story.
Yeah.
And you changed your essay after applying to some colleges, which I don't think that's ever happened in my history of working with college admissions and stuff, is that somebody wrote one Common App essay and then decided to write a second one. But as much as we laughed about that, but you were ready to do it and wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You do, this is the other thing, is you change a lot in your senior year.
Yeah.
If you think about what you were writing about in August and then what you wanted to write about by December for January, I think, applications, right?
I think I actually started writing really end of December. I was pretty fast.
But none of I think if I was Like I wanted people to like really listen to this and take that to heart. There is no right or wrong to any of it, right? And it is so individualized. But I think that's the thing that you hear again and again when we have colleges come in. Like you want to make sure that person reads about you and nobody else could write exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, or if it's too much about your grandparents or too much about like your knee that you hurt in a soccer game, that's not enough, right? It has to be like at the end of the day, like if something defines and shapes me, how do I want them to know that, right? And some of it doesn't have to be this like really long standing like root of who you are. It could be a simple observation, like similar to what your first one was about, right? Like just an occurrence that everybody goes through. There isn't any right or wrong to it. It just has to be like, do you feel like you could tell that story in a page? Right.
I know for me, I got very frustrated with my essay because I just couldn't get it was the concluding paragraph or the sentence before the conclude. There was some sentence that I just could not get right. And I left my essay alone for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks because I was just, I'm done. I was like, I'm done.
But that's good to do that.
And then I was doing my hair in the morning and I was just I was listening to music. I was like, kind of thinking about it. Yeah, I was doing my hair. And I stopped and I turned my hair dryer off and I looked at myself because I do my hair in front of the mirror because I usually have my whole set. It's a whole process. Right? It's a whole process.
Well, you're comfortable there. Like that's where you're comfortable.
And I looked at myself and I was like, oh my God, I know what to write. So I threw everything down. I opened up my computer. It's 6:50 or something in the morning. And I sat there and I just wrote the last, it was 2 sentences now, but I wrote the last sentence that I was like, this is perfect.
But you weren't overthinking it.
No,
that's the key.
And I did in fact let it go for about 2-3 weeks because I was just like, nope, I'm done.
Good.
I know for me, something that I struggled with is I feel like I had a lot of ideas that my goal coming into it was to kind of present a very unique or creative kind of opening. So I know in a couple of my notes app I had when I was I think actually 14, I was actually embarrassingly old. I got lost in Sam's Club from my dad, and I don't know how I was gonna tie that in, but I was like, this would be so funny if I talked about this.
Catch,
yeah. And then I think another one I wanted to do was the one I ended up submitting to the other colleges that I feel like I don't think that I rushed into my application, but I do kind of wish that I had taken that step back that you were talking about and kind of let myself, ruminate with the ideas. Because I ended up writing, writing my second Common App essay about how I killed a succulent and kind of how it turned into, how
hard it is.
Yeah. But, I have a tendency to kind of go all in for something and then, all out if I don't like it or I don't really get hitched to it. So it was kind of, I liked the plant metaphor and kind of trying to be able to play around hey, I've kind of learned to step back and rebalance myself and not overwater or underwater my succulent.
Yeah, but that's great.
Yeah. I also think that because you would always talk about you need a hook. Your first sentence has to be a hook. And I remember talking with a lot of people and all of us were struggling to actually get, because I just I wrote first sentence, wrote it, and
the rest of it,
put it in red,
and
I just could not think about it because I was because you talked about some people's word was, or one of them was abortion, and one of them was I don't know what
what catches someone's attention.
So then I think thinking of the first sentence was a big struggle, but then I did bring up an umbilical cord, and I was like,
right, there you go.
I was so excited. I was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah,
this is good.
Well, when you think of how short of amount of time that most people are reading up the essay, it's such a short amount of time, and you spend the most amount of time in your application writing.
Yeah.
But I do think that's a part that. If somebody at a smaller school, because medium to smaller schools read longer amounts of time because they have more time, that's where you really want to figure out how am I going to hook them and what's going to keep them reading. If they're reading 100 in a day, how do they if they're skimming this one, how do I get them to stop and read mine? Right? And how do you do that? Yeah,
and this is shifting topics a little bit, but I know, at least for me, and I'm sure the other seniors are probably going to run into this as well, I am kind of a person that doesn't like to be, like, not out of control, but I like to be kind of in control or know what's going on and stuff. So for me, especially come December, I was really struggling with trying to kind of reconcile and accept the fact that, like, once I've submitted my applications, there was, like, nothing else I can do. You know what I mean? I can't send another, like, 8 emails and be like, oh, let me change this, wait, this is what you're looking for, here, let me send this, some more supplemental stuff. Like, I had to just kind of accept the fact that it was out of my hands at that point, and there was, like, I didn't have any more control over it.
Yeah.
So
it's hard.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for seniors that might feel that same way, or like kind of accepting the fact that like
yeah, it's like it's the first time that you've had to really do that, right?
Yeah.
So again, part of this is this like moving into adulting, right? Yeah. So the exercise of applying and writing and reflecting and making decisions on where you're going to go is all part of that process that I kind of feel like it just has to happen. Like, finally, like everything is in a wait mode. Like you do all, it's like a hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
And that's not something you're used to feeling usually, right, at this point in your life. But I think it's part of the whole, like, it's part of the test, right? It's part of the process. And if you don't do it, like you didn't get to the next part, right? So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe like distracting yourself during that time frame. That's also when we start to have you talk to juniors, right? And like have you start to like give advice then to the people who are younger than you. I think it naturally kind of means like because you're in a hold pattern. It's like being stuck on a runway, right? Like you haven't been released to fly.
Right.
But how do I like maintain my sanity during the time that I'm waiting? But I do think like giving and sharing and advising the next group is really helpful, especially those of you who are really good at doing this and want to have that connection back to the next class and really just enjoying the time. I mean, really kind of realizing like now I just have to let like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like I've given everything I can. I've given them everything I want them to know about me. It's going to work out. That's why I apply to a variety of schools at a different kind of level, right? But I have to just like let it go. And like letting that go kind of brings like peace to the process at the end, right? So I don't know. I mean, I think it's just in for many ways, I think it's a rite of passage. And I kind of feel like it's actually good for you to have to sit and reflect and hold on until it comes. That's why we normally, and you actually both did this, I think, if my memory is right, had like at least an early action decision at some point. Where somebody wants me.
Right, exactly.
Right? I got one yes to wait, and then I get the rest. And so I think even looking at that timeline over the course of the like early fall to send a rolling or an early action, and knowing that some schools aren't until April 1st, that's a really long wait, right? So it's like you have to almost time it so that you have small like victories as you go, right?
And I know for you, it was different because I applied to 4 schools.
Yeah.
I will say though, just as a disclaimer, out of the 13 schools that I applied to, at least 3 were like no application fee, no supplementals. Like I literally had my Common App, the general section, all filled out, and I was like, okay, well it's free to apply. There's nothing else to do. Let me go ahead and just submit it. So
I like how she's defending herself. No, there isn't. I mean, right. That's why we have a window of 7 or 8 or 9, and you were a little under and you were a little above. So it as a whole, it averages itself out.
Yeah.
But that does make it different. And the wait period is different, and then the decision making is different when you're at a lower versus a higher number. Right?
Because I know your wait period, you were until what, April 1st?
I'm actually, it was March 21st, and I'm actually still waiting.
Yeah. And I wasn't waiting. Like, I had all my decisions out in like middle of February.
Yeah.
And I was like, done.
Yeah.
Like I had it and I was good. I was good to go. And then I know you were waiting. Well, and still are waiting.
Still waiting. Yeah.
Well, and for reference, for anyone who's listening, that means like waiting on a wait list, right? And that waiting period. So when you talk about like in December, you feel like you have a long time to wait.
Yeah.
Wait lists can drag out into the summer. And that has to be a decision-making point where you are comfortable like kind of riding the fence. Like you're going to embrace one community and get a roommate probably and even start the orientation process at the school you committed to at the same time that you're like, well, I'm going to hang on just in case the school happens, right? Yeah. And that's, not everybody wants to do that, which is okay. Probably in a year from now, you'll look back and say to me, oh my gosh, the application was nothing, because you're going to have bigger fish to fry, right?
Yeah.
Bigger decisions to make that have more at stake at that point, right? But yeah, I mean, data in our class is an interesting, like just general topic, because this is the time of year as each of you are getting ready to leave and think about going to college and like embracing like roommates and class schedules and all that stuff. We're winding down here, but trying to summarize the successes of your class, right? Yeah. So at the end of every year, Christy and I work on like pulling together the data for the class, but also comparing it to data from other years.
Yeah.
So we have lots of constituents at Key who are interested in that, right? That is everything from our like our heads of our divisions to our faculty to our board, and then to potential families as they think about coming here, or families who are kind of like rising up in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, or rising seniors. And all that data tells an interesting story of like why did students apply to 12 or 13 versus 4 schools, or who decided to stay in the state and why, or who's choosing to like study some like a certain something that's only offered in this particular way at this particular school, right? There's so many like layers that the data will share, much more than like the average GPA or how many schools did everybody apply to, right? And data, like as you get into your future careers, will become such a it's like it defines your job regardless of what you do, right? Because there's data at the base of all of that. So it's a fun time of year to do it. But I don't have it all ready yet, if you're asking.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Okay,
unless you want to know one like some juicy material, I don't know.
Well, actually, I'm not sure if you know this, but do you know the like I guess split between who applied ED, EA, or like ED versus like regular decision? Like, do you have a little bit of that split?
Yeah, I mean, normally in a class, so I'll just say, like, I always like to say at Key, so this is data in general, like, I never look at one class as a whole because we have such small classes, right? So of our peer schools in this area, so that's the other thing I do is look at data compared to Severn or Indian Creek or St. Mary's or even our public schools in like the IB program. We're small, so if we're only graduating 49 or 50 seniors, I always say that in general, looking at a couple of years, like 2 or 3 year window. So in a 2 or 3 year window of classes, so yours and the 2 previous, it usually ends up being between like 25 and 35 to 40% of the class will go ED1, and a very small percentage, less than 5% go ED2. So we're not a school that's like super ED driven in the sense that people want to marry one school and be done. We're more of a school that likes to have choice, right? And keep options open. And that's like, I think that's pretty indicative of our students, like wanting to explore options and see what's out there. We also notice across the board at private schools, we tend to have a higher percentage of ED because socioeconomically, our families tend to be more affluent. And so they can apply early decision. Where sometimes at a public school, someone's going to say, well, we need to keep all of our financial options open on the table. And so we don't have as high of a number in the public school of kids going ED, right? Even if you take the numerics of like how many people are graduating in a year. But we tend to have a little bit higher of a number, but not as high as some schools, right? And I think that's good because I think a lot of our students are also looking at a variety of schools from size and type, right, and location. So they don't want to get married too early, right, in quotes. They want to keep dating.
In terms of schools we applied to, you applied to pretty similar sizes and right or types of schools.
Oh, well, also financially, like I applied to only in-state schools except for Loyola. But.
I think that's good for people to think about that, of just like where that distance is from home is a different thing, but how much a school costs, so in-state tuition, unless you end up at a school similar to what you're doing, Caroline, it's like do you end up at an out-of-state school that gives enough money that it makes it comparable to an in-state? Yeah. And they're all like those are all part of the decisions that like depending upon what stage you're in this process, that's what we really start to think about, right? And we really start to analyze like what are the most important criteria as you find a school? Is it where it is and how much it costs? Is it the program you want to go to? Am I going for athletics, or am I going to try to audition for something for theater? So if you think of all the people you've been talking to, each of you had a very different reason of why your list was your list, right? And those are always the questions we start with families, right? Where do you not want your child to be geographically? How much do you really want to spend on college? I mean, all of us would like it to be cheap, right? But like, what is that realistic number? And then the other stuff kind of comes into play, right?
And I know there's like a lot of people that were asking, oh, well, why do you want to like stay in state? And my response for most people was just that, like, I'm going to be, in college, but it's just a whole different experience. Like, it kind of doesn't matter to me where I get it because the experience is so, like, drastic.
Yeah.
So
wherever it is.
Wherever it is. So, like, I know a lot of people were like, well, but you're staying in state. Yeah. And me and what?
Like 15 others?
15 other people.
Yeah.
Talk about data. Yeah. And that's actually a really high number for this class compared to the other, like the previous ones prior to you. Like this was a higher number. I'm not exactly sure the reason behind it yet. Yeah. But those are kind of some of the things we start to dig into and like dissect, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like for me, I know that my list was kind of all over the place because I know that coming into the college workshop, I wanted to go kind of down south to like a big SEC school. I don't entirely remember what conversation sparked it, but I think I was talking to a friend's mom and they were mentioning like, oh yeah, they went to Clemson or another like big school and they were just kind of shocked by how different it was because I think they had also gone to Key. So it was kind of like, I don't know, that just planted a little seed of doubt in my mind and I was kind of like, is this really something that I want? Like, I've had no experience with a big school. So then I started, like, kind of
you started adding a whole different layer.
Yeah, so I got kind of freaked out. And then I, like, shot up north and applied to a bunch of schools up north, which I don't regret doing, obviously. But it's just kind of, like, I feel like I had pigeonholed myself a little bit too early and was trying to lock myself somewhere so that I wouldn't feel overwhelmed with the different choices.
Yeah.
But, like, if I could redo it, I feel like I would not pigeonhole myself earlier. I would probably start back in June and go, but like I think I only went down south. I would go down south and up north.
And then up north, yeah.
And just kind of like, even if you think that you have a school, like you don't want to go to a big school at all or a small school, like, and you have that totally crossed off your list, I would still go to a small school.
I agree.
And just kind of get that environment, get that feel so that you can be 100% confident that that's not somewhere you want to end up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who you'll share this with eventually, but I think of like, I would love 9th and 10th graders, current 9th and 10th graders to listen to this, to start to think about what's coming. Because I always say to families, you should take your student, just start in our state or within a couple hour radius of here. So we'll like throw Virginia and DC into it. But you should always go see, and we do it with juniors and seeing at least one school, usually medium to larger size. BSU usually sees an HBCU. But start by just seeing a couple different kinds of schools within a few hours of here. And go see a big public and go see a small private and go see something in the middle. And then maybe see one of them that's in a city and access to a city and one that's a little bit further away. Just so you can start to say, well, this does not fit me, or this vibe feels awesome. And then we can start to like shape things that fit more that kind, right? Where I think you ended up liking a little bit of both.
Yeah. And
for your schools, like you wanted to be in the state, so we only had so many we were going to look at, right? So, and everybody approaches it differently, but I do think it's smart to see the wide array, even if you think in your head, I want big, large SEC football schools, like challenge that, right? And push yourself to kind of think outside that box.
Definitely.
I'll ask a question at the end, but I just would say, like, to kind of show you like what I think of your process in general as friends and people who are going to different kinds of schools in the end, you know, continue to help your friends in other classes and younger classes. Listening to you and sharing your advice is exactly what helps them along the way. Like I can help them and be the advisor and set things out and set deadlines and have meetings, but talking to the people that you care about the most and who know you the most, like I think of some of like your older friends who graduated, or now you have friends who are underclassmen, you're all going to feed into it for each other, right?
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize that enough for students here listening to that we're in a community where you can be friends with people of all different ages and rely on that, right? And now you're the experts, so here you are sitting here sharing. I mean, you didn't even need to have me in this conversation. You two knew all the answers. But to have really take that to heart, that younger students should be like listening to how you came about it, and then they learn their process from you, right? And not mistakes you made, but like lessons you learned.
Yeah.
And that's just like, keep doing that, right? And I mean, you'll do it in college in a different way, but keep doing it in this process that the students who are a year or two younger than you can really like get so much energy and excitement, but also just insight about how it works, right?
And I feel like each process is very individualized to that person. It's kind of shaped by their own experiences, their own situations that they've experienced. So it's just, kind of take what you can learn from other people, but also remember that each process is going to be unique. You're going to go about it in unique ways. So it's not one size fits all.
So finish the statement that you did at Y Island when we did the word bubble. So Key School is, and do it again, because you did it as a class at the beginning of your senior year. And if you're leaving, because you've been gone for 2 weeks, I already miss you. But so Key School has been to me, like, how would you finish that statement?
I would say that Key has been challenging in all the right ways. I think that through these past 4 years, I said this before in another episode, but like, if I had gone to a different school or had not come to Key, I would not be the same person that I am today. I think that through the rigor of the academics, through the faculty that genuinely does care and support about you, not just as a student, but as a person, has really pushed me to continue to grow and challenged me to continue to become better and continue to learn more. Like, I think I through Key's kind of like challenging, I guess, environment or kind of like aura, it's really pushed me to continue to grow and continue to want to learn and kind of shape me into a person that I know is going to be prepared to take on college and any other life skills. Like, I have built such a strong foundation for myself here at Key that I'm really grateful for. And, you know, it's challenged me, it's continued to challenge me. And those challenges that I've kind of find my own solutions to are going to help me taking my next step into the future.
I would say, obviously, like, every school is a growth experience. But I'd say Key is probably an expansion onto your identity. And even though every school is, I think Key School really works on, as you said, how to manage your time. Really works on your communication skills with your teachers, because we're all close with you guys, and communication skills with, you know, every opportunity that you guys throw our way. And I think that you really learn to grow, and you know how to hold yourself throughout the world after you leave Key. Because most of us, and even like last year and the grade before last, all held themselves like up and were ready to take on wherever they were gonna go, whatever they were gonna do. So I think Key is just a good growth and builder on yourself.
I do want to also say that, like, Key is also home, right? And wherever you go next, with just college or graduate school or wherever that is, this is always a place that was the roots for you, right? And so it'll always be something to come back to. Thank you for listening
to Evan Care on Air. Tune in next time for our final episode, at least for the senior projects, with our moms to just recap, you know, everything we've experienced.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.